The boardroom fell silent the moment the words left the billionaire's mouth. "You're fired." Every eye turned toward Daniel Brooks. He stood near the end of the long glass table, holding a thin folder to his chest. Around him sat executives in tailored suits, people who earned more in a month than he earned in a year. The city skyline glowed behind them, cold and indifferent. Daniel was a junior operations manager at Brookswell Industries, one of the most powerful companies in the country. He wasn't important enough to feel safe, and not insignificant enough to be invisible. And now, in front of everyone, he had just lost his job. The man who fired him, Richard Hale, Billionaire CEO and founder of the company, leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes sharp. This wasn't the first time Richard had done this. He believed pressure revealed truth. Fear showed weakness. Anger showed entitlement. He was waiting for Daniel to react. To beg. To argue. To break. Daniel felt the room closing in on him. His ears rang. His first thought wasn't about himself. It was about his son. 7-year-old Ethan, who waited every evening by the window for Daniel to come home. Ethan, who needed new shoes. Ethan, who still believed his dad could fix anything. Daniel took a slow breath. "May I say something?" he asked calmly. Richard raised an eyebrow, amused. "You may." Daniel nodded, setting the folder down gently on the table. "I understand your decision, sir. If the company believes I'm no longer needed, I respect that." A murmur rippled through the room. This wasn't the response anyone expected. Daniel continued, his voice steady. "I'd just like to thank you, for the opportunity to work here. This job helped me keep my son fed, safe, and hopeful after his mother passed away. For that, I'm grateful." Richard's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Daniel straightened. "I'll clear my desk immediately. I won't cause a scene." Then he added softly, "But before I go, may I ask one favor?" Richard gestured. "Go on. If possible, please don't let this decision reflect poorly on my team. They work hard. Any mistakes were mine alone." Silence. Daniel picked up his folder, nodded to the room, and walked out. No anger. No tears. No excuses. Just dignity. The elevator doors closed behind him, and only then did Daniel allow himself to exhale. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't know how he would pay rent. He didn't know how he would explain this to Ethan. But he knew one thing. His son would never see him beg. Back in the boardroom, Richard Hale remained seated long after Daniel left. The meeting was dismissed early. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. Daniel's words echoed in his mind, not the gratitude, but the absence of bitterness. Richard had grown up believing strength meant dominance. He built his empire by testing people, breaking them, seeing who survived. But something about Daniel unsettled him. There was no fear in that man. Only responsibility. The next morning, Richard asked for Daniel's personnel file. What he found disturbed him. Daniel had never missed a deadline. He often stayed late, unpaid. He had used his own money to help coworkers during layoffs. He declined promotions that required relocation, because his son was in school. Richard stared at the screen. "How many men like this have I crushed?" he whispered. That afternoon, Richard drove, not in his chauffeur-driven car, but alone, to a modest neighborhood across town. He parked in front of a small apartment building. Daniel answered the door, surprised. "Mr. Hale," he said, instinctively straightening. "I owe you an apology," Richard said quietly. Daniel blinked. "Sir. What I did yesterday wasn't about your performance," Richard admitted. "It was a test." Daniel's jaw tightened, but only for a moment. "I see," he said. I expected fear, Richard continued. Or anger. I didn't expect integrity. Daniel looked past him. Where Ethan sat on the floor building a cardboard rocket. My son was listening, Daniel said gently. So I chose my words carefully. That sentence hit harder than any accusation. Richard swallowed. I want you back at the company, he said. With a promotion. And a salary increase. Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he knelt beside Ethan. Hey, buddy, he said. Can you give us a minute? Ethan nodded and went to his room. Daniel stood. I appreciate the offer, he said. But I need to ask something first. Richard nodded. Why did you test me instead of trusting me? Richard had no answer. I'll come back, Daniel said finally. Not for the money. But if you promise one thing. What's that? That you'll stop using fear to measure people. Some of us carry enough weight already. Richard extended his hand. I promise. Daniel shook it. Over the next year, Brookswell Industries changed. Employee turnover dropped. Morale rose. Departments collaborated instead of competing. Daniel led a new program supporting working parents. Flexible hours. Childcare assistance. Mentorship. And Richard Hale, once feared, became respected. One evening, Richard attended a company event and saw Ethan proudly standing beside his father. That's my dad, Ethan told someone. He's strong. Richard smiled, knowing the boy was right. Strength, he had learned, wasn't about power. It was about character.